Okay, let's unpack this. We have a really powerful set of sources today, all centered on the tension in a creative life. Specifically, we're looking at the multidisciplinary artist Roos van der Yacht,
Hmm.
her professional profile, and this incredibly reflective essay that goes with her documentary series, The Artist.
And I think the first thing to say, the most important thing, is that this isn't a deep dive into conflict.
Hmm.
We're looking at a structural
A
mismatch.
mismatch. That's a great word for it.
Yeah. The whole mission here is to understand that quiet friction, you know? The feeling when your internal value system, the thing that drives your work, your choices, is just operating in a world that runs on completely different values.
Values like security, predictability.
Exactly. Measurable outcomes.
It's that difference between your inner logic and the world's logic.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people, those two things are pretty much aligned. You know, a promotion, a bigger salary,
Mhm.
success is clear. But for an artist, or really for anyone on an unconventional path, those two systems are just. They're running side by side, but they're speaking two completely different languages.
And living with that coexistence is just profoundly exhausting. I think the central insight we really need to hold on to here is that not being understood, well, it's rarely a failure of your communication.
Right.
It's much more likely a sign that you and the world around you are just using fundamentally different definitions of success,
Hmm.
of safety. What you see as a good life, that doesn't compute for them.
So let's start there with the relational side of this, because the essay is so clear that this friction, it doesn't usually show up as hostility.
No, not at
It
all.
shows up disguised as concern, and that makes it so much harder to handle.
That's it, exactly. The misunderstanding comes wrapped in, well-intended advice, very practical questions. It feels like love, but the advice itself it's corrosive to the work.
And we all know those questions. The essay lists them out. Things like, have you thought about something a bit more stable?
The classic.
Or, isn't this all a bit risky? And my favorite, the one that just demands a neat little endpoint. So when will this turn into something concrete?
And we have to pause on why those questions get asked. They aren't meant to be cruel, even if they land like a punch to the gut. They come from a worldview where stability means a steady paycheck.
A clear career path.
Right. For a lot of people, that's the only system they have to understand what safety is. So when they see an artistic practice that demands uncertainty, that requires risk, that doesn't move in a straight line, it just looks objectively dangerous to them.
Irresponsible, even.
Exactly. So they're asking the questions their value system requires them to ask. They're trying to help based on their definition of what matters.
And that's the trap. You know the concern is real, but if you actually took the advice, you'd be walking away from the very thing that gives your life meaning.
And the artist, Roos van der Yacht, she's like a perfect case study of someone living in this gap. You can see it right in her professional profile.
Yeah, her CV is fascinating. She's obviously highly successful, visual arts, photography, film. But her path, it shows this attempt to learn the other language.
You see the traditional art grounding, right? The Willem de Kooning Academy, that's the pure creative foundation.
But then, what she layers on top of that is what's so interesting. A micromaster from NYU in integrated digital media. And then, and this is the key, I think, master's modules in innovation management and business innovation.
High-level stuff. We're not talking about a weekend workshop on how to sell your art.
Not at all. This is serious business strategy.
And that combination just perfectly illustrates the tension. She's holding on to her artistic core, but she is deliberately going out and acquiring the language of measurable outcomes, of ROI.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Right.
Was getting those business degrees an attempt to pre-translate her work?
I think so.
Yeah.
To encode her artistic labor into terms that institutions, that funding bodies, that even her family might recognize as, valuable, as stable.
She's investing in the tools to speak the system's language, maybe hoping she can operate inside it without having to constantly justify why she even exists.
Yeah.
And that brings us right to the cost of all that translation.
That cost is huge. The sources call it the emotional labor of translation. It's this constant systemic burden of explaining yourself,
Softening your ambition.
adjusting your story for your audience.
Yeah. And it's more than just talking about your ideas.
Yeah.
It's about avoiding that truthful, maybe aggressive defense of something that for you is just not a choice at all. I love that phrase from the essay.
It's so powerful because if you have to spend all your energy fighting for your work's right to exist, you have none left for the work itself.
And this labor, it isn't just between people, it's structural. It's baked right into the system.
It is. And that's why Roos van der Jak's documentary-style podcast, The Artist, is such an important piece of this puzzle. It's a document of that structural labor.
So what does the series actually show? What's the unvarnished reality?
It basically tracks her trajectory in real time. It documents all the mundane but totally high-stakes requirements, the grant applications, navigating policy just to get funding. It puts the messy process front and center, not the polished final product.
So it's a public archive of this emotional labor. It's her showing the world this is the real work. The sources say the main task becomes translating artistic vision into institutional language.
Precisely. To get a grant, you have to take this complex, subjective, messy vision and distill it into bullet points. Deliverables, audience reach, quantifiable metrics.
And the series looks at things like being dependent on subsidies, the actual economics of being an artist.
And rejection. Treating rejection not as this devastating personal failure, but as just a structural condition of the job. You have to budget your time for it and then immediately start the next application.
The mental energy that takes to package something so personal into this neat, outcome-driven story for a bureaucrat. I mean, that is the definition of emotional labor right there.
It really is.
And this goes so far beyond the art world. I think this is where you, the listener, can probably connect. If you're a founder pitching some wild idea or a scientist working on a 10-year project.
Or just anyone who chose a career path that isn't linear.
Exactly. You face this. You have to spend so much energy just justifying your process because the world only wants to reward the immediate, predictable outcome.
It's a constant calculation. How do I explain what's necessary for me in a language that the economy of safety understands? That effort, that's the hidden tax on living between two value systems.
So if the first hurdle is well-meaning concern, the next one is conditional acceptance. And this one might be even harder. The essay points out that being partially understood is often more destabilizing.
Oh, it's a critical distinction. Partial understanding is when people support the idea of what you're doing.
They love the idea of art or the idea of innovation.
Right, but they don't support the reality of it. The messy, uncertain, often unpaid reality. The long hours with nothing to show for it yet.
Their support, their admiration, it's all conditional on you producing visible, high-level success. They love the win, but they quietly question the struggle it took to get there.
And that's exactly why it's more destabilizing than just being rejected outright. At least with a flat-out no, you know where you stand.
It's a known quantity.
A known quantity. But conditional recognition, that's a moving target. It feels, as the source says, close without being accurate. It pulls you in, offers validation, but never, ever on your own terms.
And you're always afraid of losing that support if your next project doesn't hit big enough or fast enough.
So to keep even that fragile support system intact, you have to achieve this insane level of external validation over and over again. And you see that pressure all over Roos van der Jak's CV.
It's not just a list of jobs, it's a demonstration. It's proof that she can successfully translate her internal drive into the world's external metrics.
I mean, look at it. A finalist for a sculpture tribute at the Louvre, named one of 100 photographers to watch.
Her film's getting into IFFR in the Cannes Short Film Corner, exhibiting in New York at the Oculus Gallery.
The breadth is staggering. Fine art, digital media, international film. She's proving she can succeed across multiple, very difficult fields.
And while that success is absolutely real, it forces you to ask that question from the essay. What's the real cost? What's the hidden burden of having to achieve that level of measurable success year after year just to earn conditional peace from the world around you?
Right. It's not enough to just do the work. You have to constantly prove its worth using their metrics.
And all that pressure, it forces a kind of self-preservation. The sources talk about learning to shrink in response. You start to downplay your ambition. You keep the most important parts of the work private.
And this isn't about being arrogant or secretive. It's a boundary. It's about protecting your focus, protecting your own coherence.
Yeah. If you spend all your time defending the premise, you have no energy left to do the work. So you stop explaining.
And that's the quiet realization. The moment you accept that being understood cannot be the prerequisite for continuing.
If we waited for everyone to agree with us before we did anything important.
Nothing meaningful would ever get made. Ever.
It's a subtle shift, but it's everything. You stop seeking permission. You recognize that some of your core choices, they're just never going to fully make sense to the people you love. And that has to be okay.
You're recalibrating. You shift from needing external agreement to needing internal alignment. The work's validity has to come from its own logic, not from the economy of stability outside.
And that's where someone like Roos van der Yak finds her balance. She learned the external language of innovation, sure, but she also had to develop the internal strength to follow her own compass above all else.
It brings us right back to the beginning. Not being understood isn't a failure of communication. It's just a sign of different operating systems. And if understanding comes from the outside, great, it's welcome.
But it's no longer required.
It is no longer required.
So what does this all mean for you, for anyone listening to this? The real challenge of walking an unconventional path isn't the big, loud confrontations. It's navigating that quiet, structural mismatch between your own inner necessity and the world's demand for safety and proof.
And the most profound lesson from all this, I think, is about prioritizing your own internal coherence. If your work depends on external validation to feel real, you will always be destabilized. The value has to be sourced from within.
The ultimate creative freedom, then, is that quiet, powerful acceptance. The knowledge that you can be deeply loved, you can be supported, and you can still be completely misunderstood in what drives you. And you proceed with absolute confidence anyway.
And that allows you to feel less dependent on approval for the hardest and most necessary choices you'll ever make.
Find that coherence inside yourself. That's the deepest dive there is.